Hi folks, welcome back to another video. So the month of May is Asian and South Asian Heritage Month in Canada. And so for today's video, let's talk about some of my Asian, South Asian stories recommendations. So I have a few categories here for this video. I have a fiction recommendation, romance, cozy mystery, thriller, and nonfiction. 5 different categories. These are, I think, the categories besides nonfiction that we talk the most about on this channel. And you want to stay tuned because I think some of these you probably haven't heard of before. Some of them you might have, but I think a lot of them you haven't probably heard of before. All right, let's talk about general contemporary fiction. I have Sunshine Nails by Mai Nguyen. This is a fellow Canadian author, and this is a debut novel as well. I spoke about it a little bit in 2023. That's when it came out, and this was absolutely hilarious. So if you're looking for a contemporary fiction that's light, that's funny, but still, I guess in some ways, are culturally hard-hitting, you would really enjoy this. So this is a story about the Tran family, who are Vietnamese immigrants living in Toronto, and it's about their nail salon called Sunshine Nails. So they've been operating Sunshine Nails for many, many years, and everything's going well until a new, nice, sleek, modern nail salon opens across from them and puts their business in jeopardy. And not only their business, but also their sense of community that they have built around them. And so now this involves them, the couple, and their daughters who step in and help them devise some well thought out sabotage. So it's funny, it's a little bit over the top. It has a really good family aspect to it, really, really great cultural commentary, how it's just so nicely woven in. What I particularly liked about this book was that a lot of the commentary around culture was from the kids who seem to be millennials, but a lot of it was also from the parents. And I really appreciated that because some of the things that immigrant children have found to be bothersome weren't so bothersome for this older couple here. So this was really funny, over the top, a really good like family bonding, and some really, really lovely characters. I'm surprised I didn't see many people on YouTube talking about this, especially because in the back we've had like blurbs from Taylor Jenkins Reid, we've got Marissa Stapley, Carly Fortune, Carolyn Hun, and Emily Austin. So lots of good authors backing this up. People need to read this. Okay, next I have a romance recommendation. I don't read a ton of just soul romance. I like my rom-coms to have a bit more of a plot line besides a romance, but I read a book last year called Camilla Knows Best by Farah Heron. She is also a Torontonian, and this was a retelling of Emma by Jane Austen. And I thoroughly enjoyed this. I have not enjoyed Farah Heron's, a lot of her other books actually, unfortunately, but Camilla Knows Best is great. So if you enjoy like a funny rom-com and also enjoy Jane Austen retellings, I think you would really like this. Farah Heron really kind of, amidst all the cultural commentary, she did a really good job of capturing the essence of Emma as a personality and as a character, and brought this like South Asian flavor to it, right? So it revolves around Camilla, who is a South Asian Canadian woman, and her entire family and a cast of characters who are also South Asian, and it was really, really fun. It was very funny. It just felt so reminiscent of the real original Emma. And I know Emma is probably one of the least popular Austens. It's personally one of my favorite Austens, so I might be a bit biased here, but that's a good book. Very fast-paced. Okay, up next we have one of my favorite categories ever, which is cozy mysteries. Now, I couldn't just pick one recommendation for this. I had to pick 2. So, but you know what? I think you would like both of them. So first up, we have Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers by Jessica Sutanto. I have harped on and on and on about this book on this channel, and it's really, really lovely. It's very funny. This is a standalone, so Jessica Sutanto has written a number of series that I've spoken about on this channel, but this is a standalone. It's about an elderly Chinese lady living in Chinatown in San Francisco. Her name is Vera Wong, and she runs a tea shop. And one day she wakes up and she comes down and she sees a dead man on the floor of her tea shop, and she decides to solve the murder on her own because, you know, the police are not trustworthy. And I really enjoyed Vera's character. I think she was hilarious. I really want to see more books. And what was really fun too was there's also another larger cast of characters as well. And there's some cultural diversity there as well, but everyone, has a bit of a role to play. So Vera starts to befriend all these people who she thinks are suspects, and by befriending them and by mothering them in a sense, or grandmothering them in a sense, she thinks that she's going to coax out who the killer is. And so it's very sweet. Like any cozy mystery, like obviously like a little outlandish, so don't go into it expecting it to be like a realistic thriller. It was so heartwarming. I can only say good things about this book. The second book that I have in the cozy mystery category is Bangalore Detectives Club by Harini Nagendra. Harini Nagendra is a professor in Bangalore, India, and she writes for fun part-time, and you know what, she's pretty good at it. This is, I believe, her first book. The third one in this series is coming out this summer, so I am highly anticipating that. I'm very, very excited about it. This is also a historical fiction, so Vera Wong was set in present time, but Bangalore Detectives Club is set in 1920s India in Bangalore, and it follows our main character, Kaveri. She's 19 years old, and she gets married to this affluent doctor. And she's a very spirited, ambitious woman, and she wants to learn math, and she likes to like poke her nose in things. And there's a murder that happens. This is still very much, colonial India, so you'll see a lot of like British characters and British like influences. And a murder happens, and she decides to take it upon herself to solve it, and thereby forming the Bangalore Detectives Club. I will be honest, this one read a little bit like a YA, but don't let that deter you because the story is great, the characters are lovable, and this is such a gem. It's also a very, very quick read. This was not that dark. The second one in the series was actually quite dark. I wouldn't maybe call that one a cozy mystery, but this certainly was, right? Because elements of a cozy mystery are lovable characters, a bit of an outlandish plot, and also just like a lot of intrigue, but also some like humor in it. And I thought Harini Nagendra did a really, really great job. Now, for those who like thrillers, I have a recommendation, and you know what? I have recommended this book a lot to every single person. I am not ashamed of bringing it up again on this channel, but my thriller recommendation is Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. I know everyone's spoken about this, and if you haven't read it, you need to read this book. I'm putting it in the thriller category because it really read like a thriller. I think a lot of people will put this in the contemporary or I guess literary fiction category. I did put it in the contemporary fiction category before I read it. After reading it, sitting with it for some time, I think this belongs in the thriller category because it's told very much like a thriller, okay? But if you, for some reason, haven't heard of Yellowface, this follows our two main characters, June Hayward and Athena Liu. They are best friends, they are writers, went to the same MFA program together, but Athena Liu, who is Chinese American, has received just a ton of popularity with her books after graduation, and June who's a Caucasian woman, is a little bit jealous of that. We're all jealous of our friends, sure, why not? But this entire book is told from the perspective of the villain, that is June Hayward. None of this is a spoiler, it's all like literally on the dust jacket if you want to read the blurb yourself, but basically everything is going fine until one day Athena basically chokes and dies. And very tragic, very sudden death. And June decides to steal a half-completed manuscript off of Athena's desk and publish it under her own name. Not only does she do that, she also changes herself and her last name from Hayward to Song to seem a little bit more racially ambiguous, and then you can see just how problematic that would be. This book is a thriller in the sense that June, takes Athena's work, sells it as her own, doesn't stop there, and weird stuff starts to happen, okay, which just it's very thrilling. Weird stuff starts to happen around June. She's constantly afraid of getting caught and seen for an imposter, which she is, and it's very, very gripping, like a thriller. Towards the end, I think some people were unhappy, like they felt like it got a little bit too ridiculous. Not for me, I really enjoyed it. But this really is a commentary on the social structures around us and how they allow racism to perpetuate and appropriation to perpetuate, but it's condensed and told from the lens of the publishing industry. This is the kind of book that you need to read on an airplane because you will just not put it down, you will fly through it, or book in a weekend that you want to finish because this was amazing. I will forever recommend this book. Okay, those are my fiction recommendations, and now have a nonfiction recommendation, and I'll share a nonfiction that I'm currently reading. But my nonfiction recommendation is We Have Always Been Here by Samra Habib. This is a queer Muslim memoir. This is about Samra Habib, who grew up in Pakistan as a religious minority and then moved to Toronto, Canada, with her family at a very young age. And the entire memoir follows her life as being that religious minority in Pakistan and then also growing up in Canada. I believe it's the 90s or the early 2000s, and really just what that was like for her, especially being someone who identifies as queer. Because her family came to Canada as refugees, there's a lot of mentions of like racism, like bullying, and her struggling, so outside the home with racism and bullying and not fitting in, and then also within the home with her queer identity in a more conservative and traditional family. This is not the kind of book that you will binge, because as captivating and hard-hitting Samara's story is, it is still a difficult read, or it was for me. So I always say with these nonfictions to, just like take your time, or if you have a large capacity for this stuff, you dive right in. But it was such a beautifully told story, just like from her oppression to her rebellion and her liberation. Incredible. I loved it. The nonfiction that I'm presently reading is What My Bones Know by Stephanie Fu. It's a memoir of healing from complex trauma. This is Stephanie Fu's story. She is an acclaimed journalist, and I believe so was Samra Habib. They're both journalists, but Stephanie Fu talks a lot about her experience of living with complex PTSD and what that's been like. And as you can imagine, this book has, a lot of the obvious triggers, and she does speak about her traumatic experiences in detail, so just to be cognizant of that. But having said that, this book so far has a really, really lovely portrayal of mental health and of complex PTSD, like what it's like to be high functioning and live with CPTSD, which is most folks with CPTSD that I have experienced. So this is also another really nice memoir. I'm hoping to finish in the next couple months, if not in the month of May, because I like to take my time with these stories. This also has a lot more attention on how culture and race and how that intersects with your mental health. So if you find that type of conversation interesting, you might enjoy this book. Okay, folks, that's it. Those are some of my recommendations for Asian and South Asian Heritage Month. Obviously, we need to be reading diverse stories all the time, but helps to focus on them, especially during some important times of the year. Let me know if there's any particular one that catches your fancy. Let me know what you're going to pick up. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.